You can speak with a capitalist evangelist and conservative warrior now. Call 833-WAR-TALK. 833-WAR-TALK. That's 833-927-8255. Now, back to Wayne Allen Root, raw and unfiltered.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's always an honor and a pleasure to bring on this next guest. And again, Heritage Foundation, all those great years in the military, expert in a lot of different areas. The one and only Stephen Bucci. Stephen, how are you?
I am doing well, Lee. It's always great to be on the show.
So we talk about once a week, and since the last time we talked, are we closer to a world war or further away?
Gosh, that's a tough one. We're still fighting in Ukraine. Putin has moved mildly with his demands. He's kind of backed off on his demands a little bit, but clearly not sufficiently to stop the event. But the Ukrainians are still holding. The one thing that I would say you could characterize as moving closer was the rocket strike that occurred closer to the Polish border,
right? Which
I believe is sort of a wave off from Putin about the supplying airplanes and other things from Poland. But I think that the West needs to stand firm. When Putin says, hey, anybody that sends weapons or equipment, we're going to consider that a provocation and a fair target, I think we should probably have announced immediately that is unacceptable. And if Putin does that, there will be retaliation against the Russian homeland, period. Don't say how, don't say the means we're going to use, but just let him know that NATO and the West are not intimidated by his threats.
Right. So I agree with that. Like, you got to stand up to a bully as always. And, Reagan did it as well as anybody during my lifetime. But I do have to say, on the flip side of that, I've always thought, and you can correct me, Stephen, feel free, if I'm arming somebody to fight you, I'm helping you in this conflict. I don't know how you differentiate one from the other. Even Trump had said this. What's the difference if we give them weapons as opposed to giving them planes? We're going to give them this, but not that. How is that different?
In the absolute sense of things, it's not. In the diplomatic sense, if you couch it in terms of, given the unprovoked nature of Russia's attack on Ukraine, the free world is standing with them, and as long as they're willing to keep fighting themselves, the world has the right to assist them against this unprovoked assault. I mean, you can put it in the right words,
right? That
you're making the distinction that we're not attacking you, but we're going to help these brave people because your attack is illegitimate. This idea that because Russia makes this illegitimate attack on another country, that suddenly the rest of us have to play by a certain set of rules, is kind of ludicrous.
Right.
And I think the world needs to stop that. Don't let Putin control this narrative. Don't let Putin dictate, how we're going to help, if we're going to help. That's just wrong to allow him to do that. Now, is there some risk there? Absolutely. Putin could go crazy and start shooting nuclear missiles all over the place.
Right.
But you know what? He's already done something irrational and crazy. This attack is not based on any, this has less validity, Lee, than when Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait. Because he said, well, they're digging diagonally into our oil, so we're going to stop them.
Right. When
the truth was, he really just wanted the wealth that was down there in Kuwait, and had nothing to do with that drilling. But at least they came up with a semi-legitimate excuse. Putin doesn't have one. Everything he has said to justify this attack has turned out to be completely fictitious. There's no neo-Nazis running around the government of Ukraine. Nobody was persecuting the Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine. This is all just a lie. And the latest one is that, we've got chemical weapons factories all over Ukraine that, that are aimed at them. They got more chemical weapons and biological weapons than anybody in the world. So, we need to stop allowing Putin's lies to drive the decision-making in this crisis.
Since you mentioned that, what is going on with those labs in Ukraine, and why are we involved or potentially involved in those?
It appears that they are legitimate medical research facilities, the kind of which we have in countries all over the world, that they're not weapons facilities in any way, shape, or form. So we have a lot of folks who are experts in tropical diseases and other infectious pandemic kind of diseases around the world. So it's that kind of facility. It is not a weapons facility. That is a Russian line.
Stephen Bucci is our guest. You can follow him at @Bucci at Twitter. It's a great follow. Lock into that. So what do you think it's like inside Moscow, inside Russia right now? I know there are rumblings about a potential civil war in Russia. A lot of folks don't like this war, this war against Ukraine, the Ukrainians. And how do you feel like it's unfolding inside Moscow?
It's probably a combination of things. There is a great Russian nationalistic pride. They're an enormous country with incredible history, and the Russian people are duly proud of that long and storied history. The problem is they also got a one-man dictatorship. You can see the optics of him meeting with his own advisors, and he's like 100 yards away at the far end of a table.
Right.
So Putin has kind of isolated himself, and that's always dangerous in geopolitics when one man alone is making these crucial decisions. Putin is no doubt the boss of bosses. He is the one who makes the decisions, gives the orders, and people disagree with him at their risk. This idea that there's suddenly going to be somebody who rises up and takes Putin out, that's kind of a really faint hope. I mean, I hope for it too, but I don't see it being very likely. The people around him, for either they agree with him or they are so afraid of him that they're very unlikely to cross it.
Right.
And in Russia, even if an enormous percentage of their population rise up, the government owns all the guns, all the power, and those people are wedded to Putin, not to the people of Russia in general. So that's a possibility, but I don't think it's a real big one, unfortunately. Now, if things continue to go south, more, little Ivans come home in body bags, then that may change. But that's not going to happen this week. Let's put it that way.
So as we're talking, I'm watching video footage that I'm sure a lot of other folks have seen, just blown out buildings, apartment complexes on fire, decimated from the shelling. My question to you is this. If you've made up your mind, as a military expert, if you've made up your mind that you are going to decimate the landscape, you're going to knock everything to the ground, why would you shell it with tanks and conventional style weapons? Why don't we just go in there and drop a bunch of Moab bombs on it or tactical nukes and say, this is what we're doing. This is the end of the story. I'm not going to waste my manpower or my conventional weapons. I'm just going to drop 2 of these and it's over. If you're a military person and you don't give a damn about what the rest of the world actually is thinking, and I get that feeling that Putin doesn't, why would you waste time and money and treasure? Why won't you just drop something that can wipe the slate clean?
A good question. I don't know. I mean, I think the tactical nuke line, I think he realizes if he does that, he really opens himself up to receive nukes back at him.
Right.
And I don't think he wants to cross that line if he absolutely doesn't have to. 2, you use tactical nukes. It leaves things pretty dirty and messy for a while. And if you want to take over a country, that's not necessarily a great idea. 1, you'll turn the remaining population definitely 100% against you. And 2, it makes that terrain pretty much unusable for the foreseeable future. Why he doesn't use conventional air munitions to do that, I don't know. It seems like it would be a lot more efficient.
Right.
And he doesn't seem to give a darn that he's killing civilians. I think he's caught in a loop of, I've got to show these people that my military can actually do this, my ground force.
Right.
Because, by any spreadsheet analysis of this, the Russian army should have rolled over Ukraine and been sitting there drinking Ukrainian wine for the last 2 weeks, and that's not the case. So I think he's kind of caught in his military saying, we can do this, boss. Don't use the Air Force yet. Plus,
Right.
The Air Force hasn't shown itself to be all that competent in the missions they have done. So maybe he's a little bit nervous that the Air Force will look stupid and screw it up. And maybe he's kind of wedded to trying to get the ground forces to do it right. I don't know. He's not really sharing that analysis with us that's driving their decision.
Is he making the decisions, or do you think he's got generals making the decisions here?
I think on the ground, the tactical decisions are probably being made by some of the generals. But, there's some detailed reports going back to old Vlad. And the big decisions he's clearly making. We don't know where that line of demarcation is. In some cases, those tactical things, they don't go back and ask. They just make a decision themselves.
Right.
Because they may not like the answer, or they think it'll make them mad, and they don't want to ask them something that'll do that. So I think there's a lot of hand-wringing on the Russian side between Vladimir Putin and your average Private Ivan. It's not hand-wringing over the Ukrainians. It's hand-wringing over what the heck is Putin going to do next. Is it going to, send somebody to put a bullet in my head? There's a lot of that concern in the leadership of Russia, leadership broadly defined there.
Stephen Bucci from the Heritage Foundation again joins us every week, and we always appreciate his time. How does this dynamic change if China does get involved and begins to back Russia at their request? There's been reports out that they've reached out, and how would it change everything?
Russia seems to be reaching out to lots of folks. They're bringing in Syrian fighters. They're reaching out to China for weapons. I don't understand that. Russia's got as much, if not more, weapons than China does. So obviously it's a ploy to get China involved somehow. I think the Chinese will shine them on, and because they don't have any interest in losing any Chinese blood or treasure in Europe. They've got fish to fry in their own region, and they're hoping that Putin will set some sort of precedent that will give them an easier green light if they decide to go after Taiwan or anywhere else in their region. So I would say China may help out materially, but I doubt they will, do much more than that. Maybe some diplomatic support. They at least won't get in their way in international fora. But I don't see China sliding in and becoming, a wartime partner of Russia at this time.
Okay.
They're a little more cautious than that.
All right, Stephen, the Iranians bombed a consulate. This a game changer? This changed the landscape of our discussions with them about the nuke deal?
I think, bad guys tend to move when they think it's to their advantage.
Right.
In this case, Iran figured, hey, let's go slap these guys. They're kind of busy right now. They're probably not going to bother with us anyway. I do think it's telling that the Iranians really don't see what they did as a negative in their negotiations with the Biden administration over the Iran nuclear deal. For me, it ought to be a deal breaker. There shouldn't be any more negotiations with that regime in Tehran. But the Biden administration they're just as blind as the Obama administration was to the evilness of of the mullahs in Tehran.
Right.
And the fact that they haven't immediately broken off negotiations, oh, by the way, which are brokered by Russia.
Insane.
I mean, this could not be any more bizarre setup. But everybody feels like, all the rules are off. They don't have to worry about the Biden administration. I think Biden could take some decisions that would help correct that to a degree, but they don't even seem to be ready to do that. They don't even want to fix what's broken.
No.
They seem to be willing to just continue to ride down the same very, very dangerous path of appeasement and weakness because they're hoping against hope that it's going to get them something back. I don't think that it's going to.
Stephen, great stuff as always. By the way, the Babylon Bee is reporting that Biden is intending to sell Alaska back to the Russians so they can start drilling, just in case you were wondering.
Babylon Bee people are so clever.
They are funny. All right, brother. Thank you for the time. We'll talk to you next time. Appreciate it.
Sounds good, Lee. Take care, brother, and be well.
You too, pal. All right, let's take a quick break. Once again, my name is Lee Elsey. I am filling in for Wayne Allen Root tonight, tomorrow night, then a couple days next week, as I believe he's on a well-deserved vacation. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. You are listening to the USA Radio Network, raw and unfiltered.